the bigger question, some philosophical, is you have to believe that it's possible. Right? You believe something, so I think many people don't believe it's possible. I believe it's possible.
We're a company that provides solution for people to realize their creative visions.
Every other team at Adobe that I've worked with or talked to is really that passion for how people are using our products, and really making the products the best they can because we use them ourselves.
Adobe is a very different company to me, okay, because Adobe is serve mainly the interest of the user, which are mostly creative user. They're, in some sense, is artists.
We start planning for the next release around the time that we're working on this release, and sometimes even earlier. We do a lot of customer visits, and that could be going out and visiting customers and actually hearing what it is that they like and they don't like, what they need. Or it might mean bringing in customers and actually doing a more formalized research. Or perhaps it's working with the research group at Adobe and doing a very systematic approach to understanding usability issues and things like that. So we're doing that on an ongoing basis, right? So we're always collecting feedback, always collecting information that we need.
Everything starts with doing healing brush, right? That's back in Photoshop 7. Before that, you only see Jeff Chen on the splash screen, right? So healing brush is my first feature that I consider to be hit inside Photoshop. And the first imaging processing feature I have done. Before I did that, I just do what people told me. After that, I try to define what I like to do.
The first version of Lightroom was, really kind of, looking back, it looks really basic. I don't even think there was a crop tool, for example, in Lightroom 1. And so every version we look at, okay, how can we make it better? So in version 2, we had things like published collections. Version 3, we had noise reduction and lens profile corrections. In version 4, we completely rethought the imaging algorithm. We added things like a map module and a book module. We've added even more. So now you can do more sophisticated healing operations, and we've got a new upright tool that helps correct perspective. So things like distortion, and if you're shooting architecture, we can do a better job of eliminating keystoning. So with every version, we continue to look at, okay, what are the problems that the photographers are seeing, and how do we solve those problems? And we want to be able to do it all in Lightroom. So
in my current role, I really are involved with many projects, and in the past, I think 15 years, mostly my time is spending on Photoshop. Photoshop is just like a work, okay? In some sense, it's entire work to me. And so every feature or every release of Photoshop, I would do certain feature. But among those features, I usually will have one feature that I spend most of my time.
We house really amazing researchers and really amazing innovations that I'm constantly seeing that we don't necessarily put into the product because they might not be ready, or they, you have to try to reimagine, like if you think about how you do lighting, right? Like how lighting is set up right now. What if you can just recreate that lighting post-processing? In the current release, I spent most of my time on a particular feature called shake reduction, okay? And we call it deblur, okay? Which is a project looks like impossible, because you can see that whenever you talk to people, there are people hype about it, there are people say, oh, it's not, we overhype the feature, right? It cannot be possible. So this actually is a very controversial, it's a good subject for me to take a look at, because the way I look at it is, yes, it's not possible. But if you don't do anything right now, it will not be possible, right? So it's a very challenging task. I spend a lot of time on it, and actually, video or not, a lot of time, it's not necessary on the technology. It's to understand what does it take to bring the technology that's not possible for the user to totally appreciate right now, so that they can appreciate, understand what can be done, right? First of all, the problem is a very classic problem. Human beings have been trying to, scientists have been trying to solve this problem for many years, right? So basically, you have some, you look at Canon, Nikon, they are something like you can stabilize your image. So this is, for us, is more like a post-stabilization. And the idea here is, it really has a lot to do with how the computer was evolved.
This idea actually is no big deal in many scientists. Newton probably can find out the solution, except he don't have a computer, right? So basically, you look at the image, you try to analyze, you assume that image could be sharp in the first place, and you try to analyze, understand why it become, you know, what is right now. Looks like a little bit edge, it's a little bit blurred. It's supposed to be a sharp edge, all of a sudden it become blurred. And if you try to use those clues, try to, backtracking, try to reconstruct what possible damage was done.
Probably about 8 years ago, a couple of people on the Photoshop team, people like Mark Hamburg and Thomas Knoll and a couple other people were visiting with photographers, and they saw this challenge of, photographers are taking so many photos and managing them and being able to do really quick edits against them was tough and time consuming. And so they came up with this hypothesis that people wanted an all-in-one application to really organize, edit, and do some basic outputs. And that's been validated over time based on the success of Lightroom and the fact that photographers continue to use it, and it's something that continues to evolve. But really that core of being able to organize your photos, being able to edit them, and being able to do something like share them out or to create a photo book or a slideshow is something that it seems really compelling, and it seems that a lot of photographers have really naturally gravitated towards working that way.
People are fascinated with crowd. They also love the thing going on in the crowd, and Adobe really want to participate. But with Adobe's strengths, we have a lot of creative pro users. We have Photoshop, we have Acrobat. So Acrobat crowd, Photoshop crowd. But what does that mean? Because you cannot just say Photoshop running on the crowd. Or we try it, doesn't seem to work, right? So these days I've been contemplating what does it mean, right? And what I got so far is, yes, our user is right. They love Photoshop, but they don't necessarily are ready to use Photoshop right away, right? So crowd and Photoshop should have a different meaning than when you take a look at Photoshop.
You will use Adobe tools to help you realize what it is that you're trying to create. And it really helps people be creative and realize their potential in a way.
I was very impressed when I first joined Adobe 22 years ago. I saw a lot of artists, and we talk about aesthetic. As an engineering organization, you usually don't care about something like that, right? People say, So it's really, to me, the people are very diverse.
And I think the reason that I love working at Adobe and what I think is really great is I think the fact that everyone that I work with is incredibly creative and is really passionate. And so everyone, at least on the Lightroom team, is really focused on photography. We're all photographers. We all love taking photos and looking at photos and really thinking about photos. And so that passion really shows through when you're in meetings and when you're talking to people. And it's not just a product, but it's really something that everyone's really passionate about.